Well, only 3 times in the last 500 years have there been 4 consecutive blood moons which fall exactly on Jewish feast days. Now, only 3 times in the last 500 years. We're on the 4th one now. We are right now in the middle of 4 blood moons. The second one is going to occur early in the morning on April the 8th. Then the third one will be April the 4th, and then the 4th one will be September the 28th of 2015. Now, the reason this is so important, let me just take you to the teaching right now. We're talking today about the sign of the 4 blood moons. So what is the teaching? The teaching says that when 4 consecutive blood moons fall on Jewish feast days, that a major event affecting the Jewish people will occur. Now, this is not actually a teaching of the Bible, but this is an observance of what has actually happened. And many people believe that there are some roots in Bible prophecy. Now, 4 blood moons will occur between April the 15th of 2014 and September the 28th, 2015. It is believed by many people that some great event will occur during this time period. We're talking about a world-changing event. So we're in the middle of this right now. Let's pause for a moment to make sure we understand what a blood moon is. A lunar eclipse occurs when the earth passes between the sun and the moon. It blocks out the sun's rays to the moon, and the rays wrap around the earth. Enough of them bend, the red ones in particular, and they give the moon an appearance of being blood red. Now, that's what we mean by a blood moon. There are many blood moons that occur. I mean, we've had normally at least 2 or 3 a year. I'm sure that you have seen the moon when it looked like it had turned red. And some people, NASA in particular, calls this a blood moon. So this happens at least twice a year. However, there's another term that we need to know, the term tetrad. NASA calls 4 consecutive blood moons, normally about 6 months apart, a tetrad. From 1 AD until 2013, there have been 55 tetrads total. So in 2,000 years, there have been 55 of these tetrads, quite a few really. However, from 2000 and let me back up. There have been 3 of these tetrads over the last 500 years. 1493 through 1494, there was a tetrad. 1949 to 1950, and then from 1967 to 1968. Now, these particular tetrads are special in that they fall exactly on Jewish feast days. Now, during these last 3 tetrads falling on Jewish feast days, there has been a major event affecting the Jewish people every single time. 3 out of 3. Let me tell you about these 3 times. In the tetrad of 1493, 1494, just before this, there was a major event affecting the Jewish people called the Spanish Inquisition. The Spanish Inquisition was simply an order issued by King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella of Spain that all Jews had to leave the country within 4 months or else convert to Catholicism. If they did not leave the country and did not convert, then they were to be put to death. Now, about 400,000 or so Jews fled the country. I mean, can you imagine having to pick up, liquidate everything, sell out, and leave the country, not even knowing where you can go in a brief 4-month period? So 50,000 of these Jews decided to stay and convert to Roman Catholicism. However, after this happened, many people began to be suspicious that the Jews only converted in order to save their own necks. Consequently, they began to be watched. And if there was no smoke coming out the chimney on the Sabbath day, on Saturday, then it was suspected that these Jews were still secretly observing Judaism. There were other things. If they didn't travel on the Sabbath day, they were held under suspicion. So a lot of people would report these Jewish families to the authorities, and then the authorities would put the Jewish families under torture in order to get them to confess. Well, obviously, if you get enough pain, people will say almost anything that you want them to say. So they would end up confessing. As a reward for their confession, they then were burned at the stake. It was a horrible, horrible time, and it was called the Spanish Inquisition. Now, it was during this time, not only did the Spanish Inquisition occur on 1492, but another very important event happened on 1492. All of us learned it when we were in grade school. 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. Christopher Columbus discovered America in 1492. Now, many people now believe that Christopher Columbus was secretly Jewish and that his voyage out of Spain and to the New World was really his effort to escape the Inquisition. So we've got to ask, in fact, was Christopher Columbus Jewish? In Simon Wiesenthal's book, Sails of Hope, he argues that Columbus's voyage was motivated by a desire to find a safe haven for the Jews in light of their expulsion from Spain. Now, in the studies of Carol Delaney of Stanford University, they led her to believe that Columbus was a deeply religious man whose purpose was to sail to Asia to obtain gold in order to finance a crusade to take back Jerusalem and to rebuild the Jews' holy temple. Now, Columbus's voyage was not funded by Queen Isabella, in spite of the fact that that's what many history books teach. It has now come out that there was a prominent Jew by the name of Louis de Saint Angel and Gabriel Sanchez. These two men advanced an interest-free loan of 17,000 ducats to Christopher Columbus from their own pockets. Now, we're talking about several $1 million here in order to help pay for the voyage of Christopher Columbus. There was another Jewish man, a rabbi, by the name of Don Isaac Abravanel. He also contributed to the voyage of Christopher Columbus. It's interesting that all three of these people that financed the trips of Christopher Columbus were in fact Jewish. So, we've got a tetrad from 1493 to 1494, and these 4 blood moons fell exactly on Jewish feast days. Then the Spanish Inquisition was within about a year of those 4 blood moons. The next blood moons didn't happen for another almost 500 years. It was 1949 and 1950 that the destruction of Jerusalem had driven the Jews into exile. The Jews had been going from country to country from 70 AD, that's when the destruction of Jerusalem occurred by the Romans, from 70 AD until 1948. Now, another tetrad occurred 1949-1950. All of you know that in 1948, May the 14th of 1948, actually, the independence of the state of Israel was declared, and the new nation of Israel was reborn. That was tetrad number 2 for the last 500 years. Then in 1967, 1968, there was another tetrad. Well, we all know in the famous 1967 war that Israel conquered the city of Jerusalem, reuniting Jerusalem, reestablishing it as the capital of the nation of Israel. So now they're in control of their Temple Mount for the first time in 2,000 years. The Temple Mount was the location of the first Jewish temple built by Solomon, completed in 968 BC. The second Jewish temple built by Zerubbabel, completed in 516 BC. So this was the place where God said, I will put my name there. This is the place where Abraham raised the knife over Isaac, as you can read the account in the book of Genesis in the Old Testament. So now they had recaptured the place where God 37 times in the Old Testament said, I will put my name there. That happened in 1967. Once again, the 4 blood moons, exactly on Jewish feast days, were taking place in 1967 and 1968. So all 3 of these tetrads on Jewish feast days were very close in proximity to a major event that affected the Jewish people: the Inquisition, the rebirth of the nation of Israel, and the reunification of the city of Jerusalem. Now, it's the only time it happened in 500 years. But the interesting thing is, it is now happening again. You and I are living in the middle of another one of these 4 blood moon series, fallen exactly on Jewish feast days. Now, according to NASA, these tetrads, these 4 blood moons, will occur April the 15th, and that did happen, 2014. October the 8th, 2014, that's going to happen tomorrow morning, about 5 o'clock in the morning. And then they will happen again on April the 4th of 2015 and September the 28th of 2015. Now, we have a DVD out on the sign of the 4 blood moons. If you'd like to have your own copy, you can call our operators right now. The number to call is 1-800-Endtime. Just tell them you want the DVD on the 4 blood moons. We live in an interesting time. The big question is, will another major event affecting the Jewish people happen this time?